Welcome to Business Insight Fredericton. I'm Krista Ross, CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'm speaking to Brody Hanson from Workwater. Cheers. Brody, tell me about your company and about your product.
The product is called Workwater Energy Drink. It's an energy drink for professionals designed to be a healthier, more natural alternative to traditional energy drink beverages.
So, I love the name Workwater. How did you come up with that name?
Coffee is the fuel of working professionals, and I wanted something different than coffee. And the only alternative are these crazy, ridiculous looking beverages that have funny names and brightly colored cans. And for me, I just wanted the coffee equivalent of a cold, ready to drink beverage. I'm a simple guy. I wanted it to be the fuel that fuels me while I work hard every day. And so Workwater, that's what I wanted to call it, because that's what I wanted to represent.
So when did the business get started?
In 2018 is when I started product development, and it took me about 2 years to get to the point where I could launch as a, I'll call it legitimate business, which was around September of 2021.
So what is your background, Brody?
I went to University of New Brunswick back in the early 2000s, did a degree in computer engineering, then a master's in civil engineering, found my way to my first career of intelligent transportation systems in the consulting sector in Toronto. Decided that wasn't for me, moved back to New Brunswick, did an MBA, and have been doing business and management consulting for the last 7 or 8 years now.
So when you launched, you went by the name MAV Synergetic. What made you decide to start using the brand name of Workwater?
Most of my work under MAV Synergetic to date has been consulting, but I've used that to incubate the Workwater business as its own product, and now it's grown big enough that I get to spin it off as a wholly owned subsidiary called Workwater Inc. and have that grow on its own, which is pretty exciting.
One of the things that I love about the product is the very simple packaging, and sometimes the most stylish things are the most simple things. How hard was it to come up with that very simple look?
For me, it was really about, I want not just a better on the inside beverage, but aesthetically speaking, it need to fit in the environment that I was in. And so simple, professional, basic aesthetic.
I know for a fact that you launched during times of COVID, because the first time I tried Workwater was when you did a contactless delivery to my front doorstep, and I've loved your product ever since. So tell me about launching during those challenging times.
The hardest part about launching during COVID was, at the time I was working with a co-packer in the United States. And so we had made arrangements, they'd produced a few initial batches for me that worked out pretty well. And so we're geared up to launch February of 2020 in an honest way. And COVID happened, and I had a site visit scheduled 1st of April to go visit their factory. It was down in Florida, and I couldn't do that. And so I had to work remotely. And of course, with getting a new product, it was a new business for them. We had to do a lot of troubleshooting. We had to do it remotely. I had to hire a consultant down there to go visit the place on my behalf. And we ultimately ended up parting ways at the end of 2020 because they couldn't meet my requirements for production and a quality product. Had I been able to go visit them when I did, we would have solved all we would have found a different direction much sooner. So COVID really delayed my ability to make progress and get the business off and running. My plan has always been do direct to consumer to get people aware of the product. I think the infrastructure that's around us for being able to do direct to consumer, Shopify, courier services, it makes it amazing that you can take down all the barriers associated with traditional retail, particularly in this sector, and go right to the customer. So that kind of helped me a little bit in terms of people got more used to ordering things online in a very fast way. But overall, it was challenging because of the co-packer.
When I first tried your products, one of the things I liked about it is that it wasn't super sweet to taste, and I feel like it might be a bit of a healthier alternative. Tell me about that.
I wanted a clean label beverage, and so there's only 5 ingredients in Workwater. Water, obviously, citric acid, natural caffeine that's extracted from green coffee beans, stevia, and natural flavors.
Give me a ballpark. How many calories are in a can of work water?
Between 5 and 10, depending on the flavor.
So essentially nothing.
Very little calories, yes.
Wow, that is great. You talked about natural caffeine or naturally sourced caffeine from green coffee beans. How much caffeine is in a work water, and how does that compare to my favorite cup of coffee?
There's 180 milligrams of caffeine in 1 can of work water. That's equivalent to a large coffee.
Tell me a little bit about the structure of your company, Brody. How many people work for work water? Are you the sole owner? Did you get investors? Tell me about that.
I am the sole owner. I set it up largely to be dependent on third parties. So we're in a facility right now that Craft Coast Canning operates. They're my co-packer. They own all the equipment. They do the service of mixing and packaging beverages for other companies. What that allows me to do is not have to raise $1 million of capital, investment money to set up the production line, to staff those people. There are others along the entire supply chain that do everything that I need done. So I had to pick the business that I wanted to be in. The business that I wanted to be in was brand. So where I'm going to be hiring for and investing in is marketing teams, creative producers. The staff that I'll be building is around that. Everything else I can outsource to the amazing people that I work with right now.
So we've talked a bit about your production here at Craft Coast Canning, but what about distribution? How have you managed to get this product into all the shops that I see it in?
We are in about 100 stores in the Atlantic Canadian
Amazing.
provinces. And so that's been a combination of, it started out with direct to consumer, and seeing the demand that produced allowed me to have some leverage with talking to retailers. And you got to start small, right? So the small independents, great people to have conversations with who've been incredibly supportive of local. So we get in a few stores that I would fulfill locally. And then that gets us conversations with Sobeys local program has been amazing to work with. So they're one of the few big banner stores that really have a local program that they've invested in. Our biggest turning point was back in May. We started working with a distributor out of Dartmouth called Maritime Natural Foods, and they service Sobeys locations, Simply for Life, a number of others. And so that finally was the big turning point of, we're now shipping pallets.
So when you first started, there was one flavor, it was called work water, but you've now expanded your repertoire. You've got a couple of new flavors. Tell us about that.
So in February of 2022, we added a lemon flavor and a blue raspberry. To date, the blue raspberry is the most popular. That's almost half of our sales. And then the other two, it's split evenly.
There's a little bit of a different taste profile in each product. So do you have plans for other flavors?
Eventually, I think 3 is the right number for now. The thing that happens with food and beverage is every new SKU or every new product that you add increases your complexity of getting into new stores. Mm-hmm. So when we expand into Loblaws, Metro, go to Ontario, we've got to pay multi-$1,000 listing fees for every single SKU or flavor or package size that we want to sell in those stores. Mm-hmm. So I think 3 is the right number to have something for everybody. And when the time is right, we're definitely going to add more flavors. Mm-hmm.
So when you launched your business, did you get investors? Did you get funding? Did you get support? Or did you bootstrap?
Bootstrap. So I had to work out a way that would allow me to do this, but still, keep the lights on. So in 2017, I formed MAV Synergetic. And since then, I've been doing a lot of consulting under that business, which I reinvest in developing products like this. And so this has been the culmination of me just putting money back into the business to develop this. And now that we're at the point where it's spun off as its own company, that opens up a number of opportunities like investment that is likely the road that we're going to go down soon.
Tell me a bit about who your clientele is. Who would you classify as your main clientele?
So initially I designed it for people like me, working professionals that probably started drinking Red Bull 20 years ago but have now aged out of that experience and need something else. So there's a lot of us out there, and realtors, consultants like me, bankers, any kind of working profession that is grinding the midnight hours. They need something like this, and that's been very well received. Another are health and fitness enthusiasts and professionals. So we work with a number of personal trainers, We are ramping up our brand ambassador program that was based on people like that who have their own business, have their own personal brand. Our values align. They love our product. We love supporting people like that. So health and fitness professionals and enthusiasts has been another great demographic. Tradespeople. So there are carpenters and roofers out there slamming back Monsters and Red Bulls that I hope to convert to this cleaner alternative, and that's been very well received among those. And of course, we have a great university here in this city, and there are a lot of students probably right now that are consuming the product to help them get through class.
Given that you have a fairly new brand, but it seems to be well known already, how do you promote your brand? How do you get your name and your message out there?
Word of mouth has been the best. So anytime anyone shares a post or tags us on social media, we immediately reshare. It's been incredible to really see how people have embraced the product and want to talk about it. And you really can't buy that kind of marketing. So it makes me feel good that people like the product enough to talk about it by themselves. And of course, we invest in other digital areas, Facebook and Instagram ads. We put out a lot of organic content on the places where that organic reach is still there. But really it's word of mouth and helping people try the product, get introduced to it, and if it's for them, then it's something that they stick with.
I've also seen your product featured at conferences and at gatherings of startup companies. That seems to be a popular way to promote your business as well.
Being able to get it in front of people, have them sample it, have them try it. And of course, anytime you get to support an event around the community that is supporting you, I think that's a great thing too.
What do you see, Brody, as your growth trajectory? Where do you see the business going?
So right now we're focused on getting into more stores in Atlantic Canada. That's the imminent short term. Next, it's Ontario. So we are actively seeking fundraising in order to get enough cash infusion that we can go into the Ontario market in a meaningful way. It's 10 times the size of Atlantic Canada. And so now that we've got the blueprint here, that we know people love the product, that it works, that it sells through on shelves in the retail stores, the next step is to go to the next biggest market. And we can service all of that from this location that we're standing in right now, which is the really exciting part. So Ontario and Quebec, so the eastern half of Canada, that will be the medium-term goal, is to try to get into those markets.
So you won't have to find a new co-packer, you can service right from Fredericton, New Brunswick.
That's right.
Amazing, I love hearing that. What would you say, Brody, is the biggest success that you've had so far since you launched your brand?
Other entrepreneurs can probably echo this sentiment, where it's largely just surviving getting punched in the face every day. And the fact that you can still get to do this tomorrow, after no matter what happens today, that's kind of the biggest success for me. I do this because I like doing it. Business is fun for me. So that's kind of the biggest success that I view is, being able to get to do this is pretty awesome.
The flip side of success is failure. Have you had any failures?
I wanted to expand into the United States earlier this year. So I shipped 2 pallets down there, had everything set up with Amazon's fulfillment services to be able to sell to anyone in the lower 48 United States. And that was awful experience. There were brokerage fees that I didn't know about, consultant food safety people I had to hire. The whole thing ended up being much more expensive than the numbers would allow. And so it was a sunk cost of trying to move into the US too early. So many examples of, like trying to move forward. I want to build this thing as quickly as practical. But there are so many moving parts that me trying to do that doesn't always result in where I'd like us to be. But what I've learned is that's just the game. And, being resilient and being persistent, that's the only way that this is going to work in the end.
Well, mistakes or failures are definitely opportunities for learning. So if you can learn from everything that goes a little bit awry, then you're doing well.
And one nice thing about the failures that I make right now is I'm bootstrapping, self-investing all my own money. So if I screw up, it's my own fault that I have to be accountable to myself and my bank account for.
So when I think about getting my caffeine hit, there's a convenience factor. Stopping at a coffee shop, stopping at a convenience store. Are you able to break into those distributions?
Really, it's about awareness. People have to see the product, and they might not buy it the first time that they see it at a retail location, But the third, fourth, or fifth, they might see that enough times to say, hey, I remember that. I heard something about that. I'm going to try that. And so really it is about getting it into as many places as possible for people to be exposed to it, people to have the opportunity to try it, remove friction from any way possible that we can get it into their hands. When we launched the e-commerce website, I could ship to anybody. That's great. But for the economics to work, I had to ship 12 packs and charge a shipping charge. But for someone who's never tried the product, they don't want to order a whole case and do that. So we developed a sample pack that has value. Right now, it was a cooler bag that we had in there in a 6-pack. So that made the economics work, that I could send somebody a sample pack for them to try all the flavors and to get a cooler bag so that it was worth the purchase for them. Now they've been exposed to the brand. So anytime you can remove friction from somebody being exposed to your product or being able to try it, that helps.
Brody, are there any organizations that have helped you in the launch of your business and in the operations and getting this brand known?
For sure. I mean, obviously a big shout out to the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce for all of the great work that they do. Industry specific, I'll shout out the Department of Agriculture, Aquaculture, and Fisheries. So they're the provincial organization that's set up to help companies that are in the food and beverage sector. Tremendously supportive, both from providing educational opportunities and funding for various programs and marketing initiatives. And then Food and Beverage Atlantic is one of the industry trade organizations that's regional that does a similar mandate. So helping companies like me with educational opportunities, making introductions to folks in the industry.
Welcome back to Business Insight Fredericton. I'm Krista Ross, CEO of the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce. Learn more about Work Water with Brody Hansen. As a business owner and as a founder, what would you say is the most difficult thing you've experienced?
Personally, for me, one of the really hard parts was unwinding the 15 years of working for somebody else and setting myself up to be able to do stuff like this. So what I'm really excited about for kids growing up today is the opportunities that they're going to have aren't linear. Quite quickly, I saw that landscape was changing, but I hung around and I went through the system of, got a master's degree, I worked for a consulting company, and those are the things you're supposed to do. You buy a house, you get a big mortgage. That's the linear path that life was supposed to be when I was coming up through. But that didn't make me happy. That for sure was the most difficult part for me.
How involved is your family in the business?
Well, my wife actually does consulting in our company, and she's got a marketing background, worked for some amazing companies over the years. So it's been awesome having her marketing lens of things anytime we go in a marketing direction.
Brody, is being an entrepreneur what you expected that it would be?
So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father ran a hardware store, which my sister's now taken over, and he had multiple other initiatives after that as well, some that I got to help him with. And so for me, this feels much more normal than going to work for somebody. So I subscribed for a long time to the career track, the career path, but really that just didn't feel right. So now things feel right.
Brody, how do you feel about the economy and opportunities here in New Brunswick?
One of the good things about starting anything here is there's not a lot of noise. So if you look at a city like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, there are lots of things happening there, and there are lots of great network effect, results that you could have with whatever business you're trying to do. But it's also really busy. It's really crowded and it's really noisy. Here we have the opportunity to, we're almost removed from all the chaos that exists in other markets. The pace at which we get to go about our business is very conducive to, I believe in it. I think it's very conducive to solving some of the big problems in the world and giving yourself the time to work on that. One of the things that is challenging for the area that we live in is we got to be self-aware of what we're good at, what we're not, what the core competencies of the region are, what they're not. Web3, blockchain, that's a really amazing new frontier that's coming. It's the same as internet late 90s and social media late 2000s. Web3 and blockchain, that's the next front. What I see people making mistakes in when they try to do big things from here is the thing they're trying to accomplish might not be the best suited for here.
every industry has its unique challenges, regulations, that sort of thing, and I sense that yours might have maybe even a few more than the rest. Tell me about that.
There were a lot of regulatory things that I had to learn very quickly in order to get this far. So the first was caffeinated energy drinks are a regulated thing under Health Canada.
Okay.
So I had to apply for and successfully get issued a marketing authorization in order for me to produce and sell caffeinated energy drinks. So that was one. Next is, as you go bigger and bigger up the retail chain, you need more rigorous accreditations and standards for health and safety. So all of the food safety elements of it, that's all a big thing that we need to make sure we take under consideration.
What's the best advice you've ever received as an entrepreneur?
I wouldn't say there's one piece of advice that I've ever received, but the best advice that I get is when I have the opportunity to talk to other entrepreneurs who are in the same industry and on some different part of the path. So I'll even shout out a few. Linda Piers from Cultured Coconut, an amazing product that's in national Sobeys now. She's been an amazing person to ask questions to. Tracy Bell from Millennia Tea, I got to meet her a few months ago, and we're all in the natural food space. We're all trying to expand our retail challenges. They're further along than I am, so being able to chop it up with people like that has been incredible. Mentors, I think, is a interesting choice of word because we always envision that it's one person and this is your go-to mentor. For me, the experience has really been finding other people who are on the same journey but at different points in time and getting to talk to them, those who are further along. And I also love talking to those who are just starting out and who are behind me because I get to return the favor of helping them avoid mistakes that somebody else helped me avoid.
So if you were going to give them a piece of advice, someone who is just maybe beginning their entrepreneurial journey, what would be your best advice to them?
Best piece of advice that I would give them is you got to really be self-aware of if this is what you want to do. Life is too short to not be happy, and for me, I choose to do this because it's what makes me happy. Not everyone is wired to be an entrepreneur. I don't know if it's still the case, but definitely mid 2015 through 2020, entrepreneurship was a very hot thing, a lot of attention, a lot of money paid towards it. You get accelerator programs that help people to do it, but with that comes a lot of people that really shouldn't be entrepreneurs pursuing that because they think it's the cool thing to do, and it's just hard. Like, it won't work if it's not what you really legitimately makes you happy. Every day is something going wrong, and you got to be comfortable with that, otherwise it'll ruin you. So my best piece of advice is be self-aware, understand what makes you happy, and if this kind of thing and this career choice is what will do it for you, then amazing, go for it.
Last question, what's next?
Just keep growing. Every day there's a new challenge to overcome. There's lots of work to be done. It's unlimited amount of work. When you're a self-employed entrepreneur trying to grow something, you could always be doing something. And so the next growth path for us is trying to get into the Ontario market in a meaningful way, establish new partners that we can work with to either deepen our footprint in Atlantic Canada, expand into Ontario and Quebec. That's really what the next step is.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Really appreciated your time today. This was fun.
Thank you for coming. It's been fun for me too.
We're always looking for great companies with a unique story to feature on the show. If you have suggestions, please get in touch with us.